Good morning, wrestling fans. Today is Friday, February 3rd, 2023. No intro or sound effects today. Unfortunately, yesterday was the sad news of the passing of Lanny Poffo, also known as Leaping Lanny and the Genius. Very sad news in the world of pro wrestling. Lanny Poffo, the son of Angelo Poffo, and of course the brother of the Macho Man Randy Savage, passed away yesterday. It might have been the night before. I know the news came out yesterday. Hacksaw Jim Duggan was actually the one who broke the news on his social media. About his passing, 68 years old. And he was born December 28th, 1954 in Calgary, actually. And like I mentioned, his dad, Angelo Poffo, wrestler and promoter, and his brother, the Macho Man Randy Savage, born into the business pretty much, and started working in Atlanta actually for All South Wrestling Alliance in 1974, and worked a little bit with the NWA in St. Louis, wrestling at the Chase. And he even teamed with his brother a little bit on the indies. And his dad's promotion, ICW, International Championship Wrestling, I remember quite a while ago at Walmart, I found this DVD set, Wrestling Gold. It was like one of those like classic wrestling compilations, and they had a lot of old matches, and it was mainly from like the Texas and Memphis territories back then. There was a few other territories on the DVD, but it was mostly like Memphis, Texas, and some of the matches were from ICW back then. You could either listen to the original commentary, or you could listen to Jim Cornette and Dave Meltzer do some alternate commentary. I remember first I watched it, I listened to the original commentary from the shows at the time, and then I went back and watched the same thing with the alternate commentary, and it was really good at the time. Cornette and Meltzer know a lot from that time, so learned quite a bit from that era. Also, Mid-South had a run-in in Continental. And then in 1985, he made his World Wrestling Federation debut. And he was Leaping Lanny Poffo, babyface at the time. I know he came out and threw frisbees in the crowd, but when I was a kid, it was mostly the Genius at the time. Remember him managing Mr. Perfect, and at the time I was still young, so I was still into kayfabe, I guess you could say, where you cheered the baby faces and booed all the heels. And now though, when I got older, I started watching some of those promos back when he would read the poems and everything like that, and use all the smart, sophisticated big words, things like that. And I thought to myself, that was a really good heel promo, great on the mic. Like I said, when I was a kid though, I just said, oh, that's the bad guy, and I didn't like him, would boo him. But when I got older, I understood that and respected the mic work that he was doing then at the time. And another thing is, he was one of the few at that time that actually beat Hulk Hogan. It was a count out on Saturday night's main event, but he still beat him though. And he worked in the ring with some of the big names too. Hogan, I just mentioned, the biggest at the time. And he was also involved, if anybody remembers, the wedding with Uncle Elmer back then. Sorry about that. And he had a career in WWF till about 1992. And to go back in time a little bit, to skip back a little, I mentioned he beat Hulk Hogan. That was on the Saturday night's main event, November 25th, 1989. Mr. Perfect got involved, and he was able to defeat Hogan by a countout. But at the time though, that was rare for anybody to beat Hogan. He feuded with Brutus Beefcake too, the Hart Foundation, Hacksaw and Duggan, and even a young Dustin Rhodes and Shane Douglas. And also when I was a kid, I remember him managing the Beverly Brothers, tag team in WWF at the time. For younger fans, they were mentioned on AEW Dynamite this week by the Acclaimed in Max Caster's rap about who they faced on Dynamite. And then after he left WWE, or WWF at the time, he took a little break, and then he went back to the Indies between 93 and 94. And then he came back to WWE for a little bit, and then went to WCW. Was part of the Dungeon of Doom a little bit. And then I remember at one time he did an interview and said one time he was actually with WCW and he was being paid, but he was never used. He said his brother Randy helped him out a lot with that, but for some reason they never used him. I don't know why. Like I said, he was good on the mic. Could have just had him as a manager, been somebody's mouthpiece at the time to help get them over and build a new star. Also, I remember he doing interviews about his brother after Macho Man passed away. He said one thing, I remember he said that he remembered talking to Randy about Jay Lethal when he was doing the Black Machismo character in TNA, and he said Randy loved it. He definitely didn't have a problem with it or anything. And then in 2012, he decided to, I guess, allow WWE to put Randy Savage in the Hall of Fame. We talked about in interviews a story about how Randy saw that WWE was putting all the Von Erichs into the Hall of Fame as a family, and he saw that and said that he wanted him to go in with his brother and his dad together, the three of them, but WWE wouldn't do it. And I remember Lanny saying he's the older brother now, and he said the fans wanted it, so he decided to give it to the fans, and Macho Man went into WWE Hall of Fame. Gave a very good speech, and it's kind of a shame because Lanny Poffo was a very good worker and really good on the mic, like I was talking about earlier, but I don't know if I would say overshadowed. I don't know if that's really the right word to use for it, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that kind of just thought of, oh, Lanny Poffo, that's Macho Man's brother, even though he did have his own career in the business, but I don't think he had a problem with that though. And that's all for this episode of Good Morning Wrestling Fans. Thank you for listening right here on Spreaker or YouTube or wherever else you listen to. Stay tuned for episodes of 360 Wrestling Fanatic, and be right back here tomorrow morning with Good Morning Wrestling Fans. Keep watching pro wrestling, and once again, rest in peace, Lanny Poffo.